this is Gina. A couple of weeks ago, I uploaded a video of this bracelet, and that's what it looks like on the wrist. Very, very, very pretty. I promised I would make a necklace to match. It took me a little while to figure out exactly how I wanted to do it. It's a little bit different organization of the components than the bracelet because, of course, the bracelet is straight. It's easy to do. A little bit wider, different decoration. Whereas with the necklace, it has to lay on the throat a certain way. Now, this design works very well. It hangs very pretty. The thing that you will want to take into consideration is how long you want your necklace, how far you want this part to hang onto your chest. Now this necklace that I've made on the video is about 21 inches long, so this hangs lower on the chest. So if you're wearing something very low cut, if you have a strapless peasant type top, something like that, this is perfect. If you want it to be a little bit higher up, you will adjust the amount of the extension that we make back here. You will just adjust your extension. So your length can be whatever length you want it to be. As you're making it, hold it up to your chest and see where you want it to be and just judge from there. Anyway, this is what we're going to make today. Let's go ahead and take a peek at what we need for this particular project. Okay, for this project today, you will need 2 colors of 11/0 seed beads. I'm using Toho for both of them, and this one is the metallic nickel plate, and this one is the galvanized aluminum silver tone. And then I'm also going to use 8/0 seed beads in the metallic nickel plated. Then you're going to need 6mm bicone crystals, and I'm using the clear Swarovski. You will need 2 colors of 4mm bicone crystals. I'm using clear, and I am using the Jet AB or hematite. I can't remember if it's Jet AB or hematite, but I really think it's Jet AB. Then we are going to be using 3mm bicone crystals. This is also a clear Swarovski. Then you're going to need a clasp. I have chosen for mine this little rhinestone sliding type clasp. Then you're going to need, for this project, I recommend a size 12 beading needle. You can use a 10, however, we're going to be going through these beads a lot, and a 12 tends to work a little bit better because the beads are tight together in the components. I'm also going to be using nanofill. I'm using an 8-pound, which comes down to about a size, or excuse me, I'm using a 10-pound, which comes down to about the same diameter as an 8-pound fire line. However, if I had an 8-pound nanofill, I would be using that. I just have run out and have not been able to get more. So I recommend for this project, just to make your life a little easier, an 8-pound nanofill or a 6-pound fire line. So let's go ahead and get started making components. Okay, to start, you're going to put 1 arm's length of thread onto your needle for each component, except for 2 components. On 2 components, it doesn't matter if you make them first or last. I'm going to make mine last. You will put on an entire wingspan, maybe a little more, however much you're comfortable working with, and just leave those long threads on your component. But for each and every other component, just stretch 1 arm out to your side and measure from your fingertips to your shoulder, and that should be enough thread for each individual component. Now, let's get started with our components. We're going to use our 2 colors of 11/0 seed beads. So I am going to use my galvanized aluminum and my nickel plate, and I'm going to start with my galvanized aluminum. Now these components are a lot like our components. They are the same components as in the bracelet, except for there's one small change. We will be putting picots on all 4 sides instead of just 2. So I'm going to go ahead and include the component in this one, though you may be familiar with it in the bracelet. Anyway, pick up 3 of your 11 seed beads of one color, and then your accent. The accent color is the one that's going to show the most. So 3 of the silver, 1 of the nickel, 3 more of the silver, 1 of the nickel, 3 more of the silver, 1 of the nickel, and 3 more of the silver, 1 of the nickel. So what you should have onto your needle is 4 11 seed beads divided by 3 of 11 seed beads of another color. So start with your series of 3 and end with your 1. And this is what it should look like. Now, bring this down to the end of the thread. You don't have to leave a long tail, just enough to hold on to. Bring it around in a loop, and from the tail side come up your first few seed beads. I like to go until I exit the first darker colored seed bead, and just hold on to your thread and pull that into a circle like so. And then go ahead and sew back through all of the beads. If I can get myself organized, I will do that. There we go. And I just sew through them 4 at a time, just because that's the way I like to do it. Doesn't really matter. Once you get back to where your threads meet, you're going to go ahead and go through a few more sections just to secure the thread a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and go through until I reach the next darker colored seed bead, and then one more time. Just that way my beads won't slide off the end of my thread so easily. It just secures it a little bit more because we're not tying a knot. Pull on your threads, your tail and your working thread, and make a nice little circle like so. Now, we are going to pick up 2 of our 11 seed beads in our first color we used, and 1 in the darker color. So 2 aluminum, 1 nickel, and 2 aluminum. So I have 4 needs. I have 4 beads onto my needle, like so. I'm going to go from this dark bead that I'm coming out of. Make sure as you sew around and you exit, you're exiting one of your darker beads, and then just go into the next dark bead on the side from which your thread is coming out. So don't cross over the bead. Go directly to the next bead on that side and pull. If your circle loosens, just pull on your tail a little bit. Tuck the tail behind and do the same thing again. 2 of your first color and 1 of your second color bead, and then 2 of the first color, like so. And then I'm just going to go from this bead, my thread's coming out this direction of course, so I'm going to go here into the next dark bead and pull my needle through like so. And then again, I'm going to pick up 2 of my lighter color, 1 of my darker color, and 2 of my lighter color. Go through the next dark bead. And one more time. 2, 1, 2. And go to the first bead we started in. So we're coming from this one, we're going to go into this one and go into the beads in the original circle and exit the next dark bead. So I will show you what I have here. I missed my dark bead. Let me go through it like so. And then just pull all of these beads down like so. And you should have this funny looking little square thing. And then, now that we're coming out of this bead right here, we can add our first layer of crystals onto the component. So we're going to use the Jet AB here, and I'm going to pick up one, and I'm coming out of this bead here. My thread is coming out of this side of the bead, so I'm going to go into the very next bead here and pull that crystal tightly between the two 11-O's, like so. And it's not going to be incredibly tight yet until we get the rest of them on. So you're going to see a tiny bit of thread, and it's not going to lay in there beautifully, but it will once we go around more. So now we're coming out of this 11-O. We're going to go into this 11-O here, pick up a bicone crystal, and pull it down into the little triangle on the corner here, like this. Tug on your thread, make sure it's in there nicely. Pick up your next bicone, go from this bead to this bead. And pull that bicone down. As you do this, as you pull, you're tightening the bicones between each section of 11-O's. One more time, pick up a bicone, go from this bead to the one we started in, and into the first crystal. You can do that on the second step. So just go into the first 11-O, pull tight, and then hop up just into the crystal. None of the seed beads, just the crystal here. Give it a good little tug. Now pick up some 3mm bicone crystals, and you're going to go from 4mm to 4mm, placing a 3mm in between these crystals. So I'm coming out here, I'm going to pick up a crystal and go into my next crystal and give it a little tug, like so. Pick up my next crystal and go from this crystal to this crystal, and pull. One more crystal, go into the next crystal, and pull. Make sure that your thread doesn't cross underneath your crystals, that your crystals are laying pretty tightly and nicely between the bigger crystals. And one more time. And see my thread twisted, so I'm just going to untwist it and pull that in there the best I can get it in there, like so. Now I'm coming out of this bigger 4mm bicone crystal. We are going to go down into this recessed darker 11-O. So go down into the it. You can see it better from the back if you want to turn it over. And then go into the 3 seed beads behind it so that you're exiting the corner bead here. This is what you should have. Now pick up 3 of your darker 11-O's, or whatever color you're using in the corner here. We're going to pick up that color, back off just a little. So I have 3 of them. I'm coming out of this side of the 11-O. I'm going to go into the opposite side of the 11-O and into the 2 beads behind it, like so, and pull. Then I am going to pick up an 8-O seed bead. And I'm going to go from these 2 11-O's I'm coming out of and place an 11-O in between that space there. So I'm going to go into the next 3 11-O's, exit the corner, and pull this 8-O down between the 2 sets of 11-O's, like so. Then I'm going to pick up 3 of my 11-O seed beads, again, the same color as my corner bead, and go into the opposite side of that bead that I'm coming out of, and form a picot. I'm going to go into the next 2 11-O's. Of course, you could slide through picking them up like we did the first time too. That's fine, however you want to do it. If your beads seem to slide, just pull on your tail a little bit. That will tighten real soon and you won't have that issue anymore. But for a little while, they can loosen and you just pull on your tail thread and it tightens them. Now we're coming out of these two 11-ohs, we're picking up an 8-oh seed bead, and we're going to go into the next two, actually next 3 beads, so that we're exiting the corner here, like so. Then pick up 3 11-ohs, and then go back through the opposite side of the bead you're coming out of and the 2 beads behind it, and pull. Pick up an 8-oh seed bead, go into the next 2, or actually 3 11-ohs until you're exiting the corner bead again. Make sure your beads slide down nicely between the beads on the component, and pick up 3 more 11-oh seed beads. Go into the opposite side of the bead you're coming out of and the 2 11-ohs behind it, and pull. Pick up an 8-oh and go into the next 3 beads. You will be exiting the bottom bead in the first picot you made, and pull. Now this one's twisted, so I'm going to untwist it and pull it back down into there. There. Now, I'm going to move my 11-ohs out of the way here, and I am going to get some of my 3mm bicone crystals, and what we're going to do now is we are going to go from this 11-oh seed bead we're coming out of into this crystal here. So we're going to pick up a crystal, and we're going to go into the crystal on the unit, the very first one in the direction our thread is coming out of, and pull. Like so. Then pick up another crystal and go into the 11-oh in the next picot. So the very bottom 11-oh, going to go into there and pull. Your thread is going to want to twist. Just keep directing it until it straightens out and your bicone crystal lays very nicely next to the middle bicone. Now we're coming out of this picot again, pick up a crystal, go into the next crystal in the center circle, and pull. Make sure there's no slack, but be careful as you're pulling through these crystals. They're sharp and you can break your thread. So pull directly through. Do not pull to the side and cut your thread on the edge of the crystal. Now, we're coming out of the middle crystal. We're going to go into the next bottom picot. Pick up a crystal and slide it down, like so. And again, pick up a crystal, and then go into the middle crystal. And we're just going to do this all the way around the component, giving it a little tug after each crystal is placed, and then go into the next picot. You have to have nice tension on this or it will not look very pretty. And it kind of pulls your unit together a little bit. You'll see that it kind of raises the picots and it kind of pulls it together, and that's fine. You want that. You do not want this to be all sloppy and separated. So you're coming out of the picot here, come into the middle crystal here, and pull. And then one more time, pick up another crystal, and go into the picot we started in, here. Pull this all nice and tight. Go down into the next two 11-oh seed beads. If you'd like, you can turn the unit over. It will be easier to see. So I'm coming out of this 11-oh here. I am going to go into these two 11-ohs here, like so, I am then going to grab the thread bridge between the 8/0 and these two 11/0s, put my needle underneath it, make a loop, and go through the loop, and gently guide my thread down until I make a knot between those two beads, like so. And then I'm going to sew into the 8/0 and the next two 11/0s here, and I'm going to cut off my thread. Just cut it off flush and then cut off your tail. If you'd like to burn down the tail a little bit, that's fine, but you don't really want to do it over here because you could block your beads. And we need to sew through them again. And that is how you will make your components. And like I said, 2 of them you will leave long thread on, and all the rest of them you'll just tie and cut off like I just did. So you're going to continue making these components until you have 18 components. Now, as you can see, I've left 2 long threads on 2 of my units here. So I have, this one has a long thread and this one has a long thread. I went ahead and finished the unit and tied it exactly like I showed you to secure it. I just did not, and then I sewed through a couple beads, but I did not cut off the thread, and I started with a longer thread. That's all that will be the difference in 2 units. This is going to be our basic layout. So let's go ahead and pull away all of these except for one with a long thread and 3 others. So we're going to start with 4. And this is going to be our center point. We're going to start there because I am designing, and when I design, it's much easier to start from the center point. So I'm actually going to want this on the inside. So I'm just going to lay these like so. And we're going to connect these 4 together with crystals and 11/0 seed beads. And I'm going to be using my 11/0 in my nickel colors. So make sure that you have a lot of your nickel color or whatever color you're using that shows the most, your secondary color to start with, and then it'll be your main color as we connect. So I'm going to be using a lot of these little 11/0s and some 6mm clear bicones and a bunch of 4mm clear bicones. Okay, so let's join these together. Now on my unit with the long thread, I am coming out of an 8/0 seed bead right here. So after you tie off, just make sure you sew into an 8/0 seed bead. And we're going to connect this 8/0 with this 8/0. And we're going to do that now that we know where it's going to lay, because I just lay out my sections to make sure I know exactly where I'm going to connect. I'm going to connect this with this 8/0. I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a bicone crystal 4mm, and 11/0, and I'm going to go from this seed bead I'm coming out of into this seed bead here on the same side. So as I lay them together, I'm coming through the same side, just opposite from each other, like so. And then I'm going to pick up another 11/0, a 4mm bicone crystal, oh come here, crystal, and an 11/0. And I am going to go from this 8/0 here, let's get you a little closer, from this 8/0 into this side of this 8/0, just the opposite side from where we started. And now you see they're linked together. So we're going to sew back through this. I'm just going to pick this up and I'm going to sew back through all of these beads I just put on and into the 8/0s until they're secure. So now I'm going into the other 8/0s and 11/0s, or not, out of this 8/0 into the 11/0s and the crystal, and then back into this 8/0. So now we have secured these 2. We're going to figure out exactly which 8/0 we need to be in next. Put our next one here. We need to be into this 8/0 to connect our next unit. So I'm going to turn this back over, and I'm coming out of these 2 11/0 seed beads here, or actually I'm coming out of the 8-0. I'm going to go into these two 11-0s and then into this corner 11-0 and then into these and exit this 8-0 so that I'm ready to connect my next unit. So I'm just going to go into these two 11-0s, into this 11-0 on the bottom of the picot here, make sure you're in the bead. Sometimes it feels like you are, but you're not. And this is going to tangle a million times. Just untangle it as you work through it. Then I'm going to go into these two 11-0s here and pull through. And then watch these picots. You will get your thread wrapped around them and then later have to fix it. So then go through this 8-0 here. And again, I'm wrapped up, so let me unwrap myself. I think that's the most annoying part of this project. And then I need to connect this one. So I'm coming out of this 8-0 seed bead. I'm going to pick up my 11-0 seed bead and my bicone crystal, get those 6s out of the way, and my 11-0, like so. Coming out of this side, I'm going to go into this side. And then I'll pick up an 11-0, a 4mm bicone, an 11-0, and then go into the opposite side of the 8-0 I started in, and pull that together. And now you see they're joined, but we have to, of course, sew back through them. So if you want to turn it over, that's fine. Sew back through all of the beads you just put on. Watch those picots. They'll grab your thread every time. I'm just going to sew until I get all the way around. And then I have to come back up into this unit here so that we can connect to our next unit. So I'm going to go all the way up here, come out this 8-0 here, and now I know there's really no other place for me to go. I don't have to lay my units out. Even if I did, it's obvious that I'm going to connect here, so I'm going to sew through these 11-0s and get up to this 8-0 seed bead. Well, come here. There we go. And then up into these 11-0s. If you can get the 8-0, fine. If you can't, that's okay too. You can get it on the second pass through here. And then I'm going to turn it over. And now I'm going to connect this 8-0 to this 8-0 and this 8-0 to this 8-0. So we'll do first, pick up an 11-0, a 4mm bicone crystal, an 11-0, and go into this side of my 8-0. Don't know where that came from. And then pick up an 11-0, a 4mm bicone crystal, and an 11-0, and we're going to go into this side of the 8-0. And now I'm going to sew back through all of them. You don't necessarily have to turn it over to do it, but I turn it over when I'm going to sew through to the next 8-0, of course. It's easier to see and manipulate your needle through the beads if you do it that way. Go back through. Oops, I'm on a picot. Really watch those picots because you won't notice that your thread is wrapped around them, and then you'll go to join another unit on and it'll be wrapped around it, and you'll have to doctor it up, take it apart, cut your thread, or hope that it slips around it and you can pull it through. So just really watch that. Okay, so I'm all the way around, and I'm caught on, see here, I'm caught on another picot. Now I need to sew back up through, turn it over, and sew to this 8/0 seed bead. So I'm going to come through here. Come here, you. Well, tricky little 11/0, there we go. And watch my thread. And then I'm going to turn it back over because I need to sew. I'm going to come through this 8/0 and I need to sew over to this 8/0. So I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to go through this 8/0 and the 2 11/0s behind it. Then I'm going to go through this 11/0 in the corner here. And then I'm going to go into these 2 11/0s here. Just make sure that you kind of show yourself where you're going and keep your eye on that target. That way you won't get confused. And now I'm coming out of the 8/0 I need to be coming out of to join my next crystal to this component. So I'm going to pick up an 11/0, a crystal, and an 11/0, like so, and I am going to go from this unit to this unit on the same side, and then an 11/0, a bicone crystal, and an 11/0, and I'm going to go from this side to this side here, pull it together. And now I'm just going to turn the whole unit over and sew through it because it's just neater and more organized that way. And now I'm going to go ahead and sew through again, come through these 2 beads here. So the 11/0, let's get close. I'm going to come through this 11/0, this crystal, and this 8/0, and I'm going to sew all the way over until I can make my way up into the top of this picot. So just look at where you're coming out and see the closest path to a picot in your thread path. So I can see if I go through here, then I can go up here, and then I can sew around the picot and come out here. So I'm going to go through these 2, into this 8/0, into these 2 11/0s here, pull tight. Then I'm going to go into this bead in the bottom of my picot and try to just come through just that bead, like so. And then I am going to sew up until I get to the top bead. So I'm going to sew through this side bead here, and then into this top bead right here. Now I'm just going to poke my needle back through the middle, turn it over, and tangle on everything. And you can see I'm just coming out of this picot right here. And I'm going to pick up a 6mm bicone crystal. Now this is all exactly the same we did in the bracelet. So for this particular part, so If you've already done the bracelet, then you know basically what I'm doing. We're going to go from this picot tip to this picot tip with a 6mm bicone crystal. So just pull it through. Like so. And then pick up another 6mm bicone and go into the next picot. So I'm coming out of this one, I'm going to go into this top bead sticking out of the picot, and then I'm going to pick up another 6mm bicone crystal and go into the next picot, and then one more time I'm going to pick up a 6mm bicone crystal and go into the one I started in here. And now we've got our centerpiece. But we're going to go ahead and sew through all these crystals again, simply because they are crystals, and the thread needs to be doubled just to make sure that we are not going to break it. And it tightens the crystals in the middle too to do this, so that you don't see any slack. So just continue sewing around. And I'm going to go ahead and sew until I get all the way back to this picot right here, and then we can work our way over to start our next section. So I'm going to go ahead and go through basically one more time. And I will lay it out for you so you can see basically where we're going to go. So now, it doesn't matter which one we end up in, because at this point we can turn it any direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this picot, back down into this connector, and then sew over to an 8/0 seed bead on the outside. So I'm going to pick up or go through this one right here, through the corner one here, and as I go through this, I think I'm just going to kind of poke my needle through the back and turn it over so you can see where I'm going, and pull it through the back here. And now I'm going to sew up these beads all the way until I get to this 8/0 seed bead here. Just an 8/0 on the outside on this middle one. It doesn't really matter exactly which one, just an 8/0 on the outside of the diamond shape. Whichever one is the closest thread path for you to follow, go to. So you don't have to worry about which unit I'm in and where I'm at. Just know that at this point, you just need to get to an outside 8/0 seed bead. And then go through the 8/0 and turn it over. Now, I'm going to arrange it to where this is the top unit, and I'm coming out of the top unit of the 8/0 here. Whichever one, it doesn't matter. Just arrange it to where you're pointing up with that unit that you're coming out of. I'm going to back off so you can see basically what my plan is. I am going to make another unit here. So I'm going to connect this bead to this bead, go over here, connect to here, and then we'll put our 6mm bicones in the center. So what we're going to do is, because we're going to work this way and then we'll work over this way. But we'll do that, the other half of the necklace, after we finish this first half. Just so you know what the plan is. Now we're going to pick up an 11/0, a bicone crystal, and an 11/0. And we're going to go through this 8/0 here. And then again, 11/0, 4mm bicone crystal, and 11/0. And then go through the other side of the 8/0. So let's get close here, and I'm going to go through this side of the 8/0. And then again, I'm going to make sure that I sew around and secure it. And I know my thread is going to try to get caught on this picot right here, so I'm going to try to avoid it. There we go. And just, there's really no neat way to do this so that it looks very organized as you're sewing it. There just really isn't. You just have to struggle through it the best you can here. I'm going to come back up until I'm in that 8/0 seed bead that I started in. Now that I'm in that 8/0, I will turn the entire thing over and I will sew into until I get to this 8/0 here. So it's where I want to be. We're going to make sure, and yes, I want to be, lay it out, I want to be in this 8/0 right here. So I'm going to sew from here to here. I'm going to turn it over, go through these two 11/0s. Once you get going, you won't have to check every time with your layout, but it's just nice to have your target in mind so that as you sew through, you don't get confused. And the more units you put on, the less confusing it'll get. Okay, come on. Go through both the 11/0s there, or they are difficult to go through. So I'm going to pick up this one now if I can. Try to go through both of them at the same time. That was boo-boo there. I didn't mean to do that. Okay. But really, as long as you get your thread through, it doesn't really matter. There you go. Now, we're going to turn it over. And, let's see, we're going to pick up this one. And we are going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a bicone crystal, an 11/0 seed bead, and go through this one. An 11/0, a bicone crystal, and an 11/0. And we're going to go back through the 8/0 we started in on the opposite side, like so. Go ahead and secure this, and then turn it over, and sew into this 8/0, and we'll connect this one. And then we'll be back. Okay, so this is the bottom of it, of course. I've secured my connection we just made together. Now I'm coming out of the 8/0, and I am going to go ahead and see I have a piece of thread around that picot right there. So at this point I can just correct this and pull it through. But if you get too far away from it, you can't. So if you get this happening, just grab a hold of something that you can just pull it around your picot and pull your thread through. Because that's going to happen a million times, I guarantee it. Now we're going to sew. We have to connect here with our crystals, so we're going to sew through these two 11/0s right here. Remember, get both of the 11/0s at once. If you can go through the corner one too, great, but I don't seem to be able to do that. So, well, I did it. There we go. Go through all three of them if you can, right here. And then I'm just going to pull it through. And this is going to bend up your needle really bad, but don't worry about that. And then we're going to go down through these two here. If you can go through the 8/02, that's great too. And now we can connect our next, I'll show you where we're at. We can connect our next crystal here. So pick up an 11/0, a bicone crystal, and an 11/0, and go through the 8/0 on the opposite 8/0 on the same side that you're coming out of on this one. And then, of course, same combination, and go through the opposite side. And then we'll just sew through these, secure them. Now, we need to get into a picot, so I'm going to go into this 8/0, and I'm going to poke my needle through the bottom. And I'm coming out of this 8/0, I'm going to sew up through these 2 beads into this corner bead and then up into the top of the picot here, so that we can put our 6mm crystals in the middle. So I'm going to go up through these 2 11/0s, and then I'm going to go into this bottom. So we have to sew around the picot. Don't just skip over to this side, because that's going to pull your piece all funny. So make sure you sew around it. Always go into the bottom of the picot and then sew your way to the top in the correct thread path. Here, and then here. Now if you'd like, put your needle through the center and turn it back over. And you can do it from the back too, it doesn't matter. I just prefer to turn it over so you can see what we're doing, where we're at. Pick up a 6mm bicone crystal and go from picot to picot. So I'm coming out of this picot in this direction. I don't want to cross over here, I want to go into this picot. And then into the next one. And then into the next one. And then I need to get another crystal. And into this one. Now, they'll bunch if you're not careful, so make sure you got enough room, they're spread out nice, and then as you sew back through it, just put enough tension to keep them from having slack, but not enough to bunch them, or you can bunch them up pretty good. So just sew back through all of the crystals and the 11/0s in the center here. And like I said, as you pull on it, just enough tension so that there's no thread showing, but not enough to pull your crystals into a bunch. They will pucker a little here and there. That's just kind of going to happen with this design no matter what you do, but you don't want them to have a huge pucker. So just the right amount of tension here. Okay, so I'm going to go back through this 11/0 here, and then we're going to look at the design. So let's see, where do we want to be? So what we're doing is we're just working our way up one side. So you can determine at this point which one you want it to be, whichever way. So we're going to work here. We're going to continue. Let me see how I want it. Okay, so this is where I want to be, so I don't have to sew so far to get up to my next one. This is a corner unit right here. And the way you can determine that is I'm coming out here, I want to make sure that I can just sew over to these outer units to add my next 2. So I want to just work my way over here and then work my way through the unit. So I'm coming out of this 11/0 here, I'll sew up into this one. I'll sew up into this one. And then I'll sew into the picot. And the 11/0 here. And I'll just push it through the back. Turn it over. Now, I want to get up to this 8/0 right here. So I have that in my mind's eye. And I've got my thread. Okay, I'm okay. So now I'm going to sew through here. and through here. Just going to go through all the beads. So I was there. I want to go over to this one here. So you can just turn it over, look at it. And the way that you can figure it out too is just to set a couple more on here. At this point it's just a straight line, and you can just continue making a straight line if you'd like. But I know that I have to go this way if I put a couple here, because I know the other side of my necklace is going to go over here. But right now we're just making a straight line, so I'm just going to get up to here. And I'm just going to sew through all these beads on the back until I get to that 8-0. And there I am. So now I can add 2 more here. And then I can add 2 more here. I'm just going to show you the layout real quick. And then we'll continue this half of the necklace off, connecting them off camera until we get to the point to where we can return and do the other side. Let's see. Okay, so off camera, we're going to go ahead and connect 2 more sets here. So 4 more of our components we will connect on the side we've already done. So just sew around till you're in the 8-0s and connect your 4mm bicone crystals. Once you get 4 of them connected together, then you're going to put your 6mm bicones in between. And then you're going to work your way around the unit, come back around, and do the same with the next. So each set is just like the set I just showed you. So as you can see, I've added my last 2 units. So from the very tip here, I have it at an angle because this is my center unit of my necklace. From the very tip here, we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double units. And then after I connected my last one, no matter where you come out, sew around until you're coming out of the top 8-0 seed bead on the outside here. So this is the inside of the necklace, this is the middle center of the necklace, and this is the outside. You want to be coming out of the middle top on the very last unit here in the 8-0 seed bead. And we're going to connect 1 unit like we've been doing previously. So we're just going to pick up our 11-0, our 4mm round and 11-0, and go through just as we've been doing and connect this particular unit here. And then we will pick up another 11-0 4mm bicone and 11-0 and do the other side. And of course, let's sew around and secure it. Once you've sewed all the way around, we're going to come through this 8-0 seed bead right here. And then we're going to sew through these 2 11-0s and get into this picot right here. So let me get you a little closer. I'm going to turn this over. I'm coming out of the 8-0 seed bead. I'm going to go into these 2 11-0s right next to it and the bottom one of the picot right here. So you can see. Then I am going to go up into the side bead of the picot and the top bead of the picot. And untangle my thread again. And then I'm going to turn it over. Now, I'm going to put it back here again so you can see. Now we're going to connect these picots, but it's going to be a little bit different this time. So I'm coming out this direction. I'm going to pick up my 6mm bicone, and I'm going to go into the next picot, just like so. And then next, I'm going to pick up a 6mm bicone, an 11/0 seed bead, and a 6mm bicone, like so. And I'm going to go into the next top picot, right here. And just let those lay there like so, and then pick up another 6mm bicone. And go into the one we started in here. Then we're just going to go ahead and sew around the entire thing and secure it. I missed the 11/0. Poop. Okay, let me get my thread back through here. And go into this 11/0. Now I'm just going to continue sewing. You can see how that makes a nice little unit right there. Kind of transitions the necklace from one place to the other. Okay, I'm going to sew back up into this picot. Then I'm going to go into the side bead. So I'm in the bottom picot bead. After securing, I'm going to go into the side. Then I'm going to go into the picot bead in the unit itself, in the component. And poke my needle through and turn it over so we can sew through the back. Make sure you're not tangled on anything at all, like so. I'm just going to go to the back. And I need to sew up to this 8/0 seed bead right here. So I'm coming out in this direction, so I have to sew all the way around till I get to the top bead there. I'm sorry, I know this is boring to watch, but I'm just going to keep sewing until I get to the top there. And these beads are a little tight, so it just takes me a minute to maneuver through them. Let me back off a little bit so I'm not killing your eyeballs there. Suppose I could have gone up through that 8-0 instead of that recessed 11-0. Doesn't truly matter, but probably would have been easier. And then through here. And then through this 8-0. And then turn it back over. And here we're going to make a connection to make the top part of the necklace. And then after that, we'll start with our long thread and we'll make the other half of the necklace. Okay, so we're coming out of this side of this 8-0 seed bead towards the outside of our necklace. If you're coming out the opposite direction, then you'll have to pick up the beads opposite way I'm doing. So you want to make sure you're coming out this way. We want to pick up a 6mm bicone and 3 4mm bicones, like so. Drop them down and come back through the 8-0 seed bead. Like so. Then you're just going to sew back around this. And sew up through until you come out of the first of the 4mm bicones right here. So go through the 6mm and come back up through the 4mm bicone. Man, this is a tangly project. Right here. Now, when you do this next stitch, we're going to do right angle weave. When you're coming out towards the black beads, the first beads you're going to pick up will be your 3 black beads. If you're coming out of the crystal towards the clear crystal, your first bead you pick up will be your 6mm clear crystal. We're coming out towards our black bicone, so we're going to pick up 3, or actually 2, because we're sharing this one. So we're going to pick up 2 of the bicone crystals, and then we're going to pick up a 6mm bicone crystal. Now we have our 4 beads, 1, 2, 3, 4, to make our unit. We're going to go back into the crystal we started in, like so. Now we're going to sew back through all of these beads. Until we get into the crystal on the top here. Like so. Now we're going to do one complete set with 6mm bicone crystals, just to give this a little bit more of a rounder spacing here. So we're going to pick up 3 crystals, go back through the crystal we're coming out of, sorry, I got my component with my long thread tangled in there. And just sew back through them. It's just a basic right angle weave we're doing here with crystal. Now, I have sewn all the way around and secured it. I'm going to sew up to this bead here to start my next unit. So I'm coming out of the black bead, I'm going to go into this crystal, and then into this crystal, and I'm going to start it with the black beads again. So I'm going to pick up two, of my black beads and one of my 6mm round crystal, or 6mm bicone crystals. And I'm going to drop this down. So you'll always need 3 beads because you're sharing the 4th bead that's already on the unit. So I'm going to come around back through this crystal, and then go back up through all of these. And the reason I'm doing a unit after I do 2 units with the black is because this will make it rounder. It'll make it wider to go around the neck if I use the 6mm beads in between a couple of units with the 4mm. Just in general, having the 6mm against the 4mm gives a rounder shape. It makes a curve. But making a bigger space between gives it a wider curve. So this is why I'm doing it this way. We could put 11 seed beads in these units. However, if we put 11 seed beads, that was my original plan. If we put 11 seed beads in between each one, it makes a really wide unit, and that's not really what I want. I don't want a really open unit. I want the crystals to lay tight against each other. The 11 in there, they're not doing that. So when I told you to get out the 11 I lied. We're not going to use them. So now we're going to pick up a 6mm bicone crystal because we're coming out of this bead, the black bead, after doing our new unit and securing it. We're now coming out of this bead here, which is the one that we are going to add with, or add to. We're going to pick up a 6mm bicone crystal because we're coming out towards the 6mm. So we're then going to pick up 2 of the black ones of the 4mm bicone crystals and come into the black bicone we're coming out of on the opposite side. Sew back around until you come out of your top crystal, the one that we're adding to, which is the black crystal, the 4mm black crystal right on the top here, and make one more unit with 2 of your 4mm and 1 of your 6mm bicone crystals, and then come back through the crystal you're exiting on the opposite side. And because I was coming out towards the 4mm, I added the 4mm crystals onto my thread first. And now I'll go up through the crystal that I started in and then secure it. And I'll secure it sewing around until I get back up to the top crystal. And then in this, I just was looking at it, sorry guys, in this top crystal we are going to add 3 of our 6mm bicone crystals and sew back around. all of them. So we do 2 units with our 4mm black ones, and then a unit of 3 connecting to our black one of our 6mm bicones. And then sew back around. And then you'll come out of the top 6mm bicone crystal, and you will pick up 2 of your black crystals, or your 4mm crystals, and a 6mm. And go back through the crystal we started in. And we'll continue in this manner, doing 2 with the black, 1 with the clear, 2 with the black, 1 with the clear, 6mm, until we have, okay, so I have made 14 units of my right angle weave with my 2 units with the black beads, and then a unit of clear, and then 2 units of black. And the way that I've counted it is I've just counted the large beads on the bottom, the 6mm clear beads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. When you have 14 of your large beads and you've ended with your 2 sets with your smaller 4mm black beads or dark beads, whichever you're using, whatever beads you're using, your 4mm small, then we're going to kind of switch up our stitch. So we're going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, and then we're going to pick up a 6mm clear, and then an 8/0 seed bead, and then a 6mm clear, and then an 11/0. And I have to apologize, I chipped my manicure off camera, so you're going to see it's broken. Doesn't make me happy, but it is what it is. So anyway, I'm going to drop these beads down to my piece now. And I'm going to come back through my 4mm black bead here and pull. Now I'm going to secure this unit by sewing back through it. Until I get all the way around and then back up through my 8/0 seed bead. And then I'm just going to do some stitching with right angle weave through this 8/0 seed bead with seed beads, so that it kind of saves some of my crystal and I still get a little bit more length to come up around the back of the necklace. So let me rearrange my camera here. Now I am going to pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, and then I'm going to pick up a 4mm crystal and 3 11/0 seed beads. And I'm just going to go back through the opposite side of my 8/0 seed bead. Let's get a little closer. Oh, come on, camera. There we go. And then I will sew back through all of these beads. We have to secure each stitch, or you'll just have a loose, wobbly looking situation going on, and you don't really want that. So make sure you secure each stitch. Whoops, I'm tangled. There we go. And then back through my 8/0, and then I'll just work my way back up to the crystal here. And then I'll go through the crystal. And then I will pick up 3 11/0 seed beads, and a crystal and 3 11/0 seed beads, and I'm using my 4mm clear crystals, like so, and pull it around, going through the opposite side of the crystal from which I was exiting, and then sew again all the way around this entire stitch. If you'd like, you can continue with right angle weave all the way to the end, doing the same, or you can do right angle weave with just your crystals, however you want to do it, with your 4mm crystals. It doesn't matter. This is just a way to save on some of my crystal and to get some more length. This is just going to be around the back of the neck anyway, so you're not really going to see it that much. I'm going to continue making these stitches with the 11/0 seed beads, and oh, I hope I was in camera. Anyway, I just did exactly this stitch the way I did this one. So I'm going to continue making these with 3 11/0 seed beads and my crystal until I have 9 units. So just count your crystal in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, I was right. Okay. Once we have got to the end of our units, and of course you can make more of these if you want your necklace to be longer. I'm aiming for about a 20-inch necklace. Because of the thickness of this, it's going to still be somewhat of a collar necklace. So you can make more units if you'd like. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this in, and I am going to pick up 3 11/0 seed beads and then 1 8/0 seed bead, and I'm going to drop this down to my crystal. Then I'm going to pick up my clasp, and I'm just going to leave my clasp together. This is the other end. I'm just going to leave it together for now, and I'm going to come up through the loop on the clasp, and then I'm going to come back down into the 8/0 seed bead. Maybe, there we go. And make sure that my clasp is laying the right direction. And then I'm going to pick up 3 more 11/0 seed beads. So let me get 3 more here. And then go back into the crystal. That's what that should look like. Now I'm just going to sew back through the 3 11/0s on this side and the 8/0, go through my clasp again, back down into the 8/0 and the 3 11/0s on the opposite side, through my crystal, and I'm going to do that a couple of times until I feel like it's nice and secure, and we'll be back. So just sew through, securing your clasping, and we'll be back. Okay, so once you have secured your clasp by sewing through it a couple of times, we're now coming out of the crystal here. We're going to grab the thread bridge on the first unit below where we attached here between the 11/0 and the crystal, and we're just going to create a loop and then just arrange the thread to where it's between that crystal and the 11/0s and pull a knot down. And then we're going to sew down through the 3 11/0s, and then into the next crystal, and again we will grab a knot between the crystal and the 11/0s, pull it down, sew down into the 11/0s, like so, into the next crystal, and just continue doing that until you feel like you have a nice secure ending, and then cut off your thread and burn down a little bit of a tail. and we will be back and we will start the other side of the necklace. Okay, so I have sewn through and secured my clasping onto the end after making my 9 units. Sewed through, secured it, tying my knots, and then cut off my thread and burned down the little bit of tail I left. So now this end, this side of the necklace is done. So now we need to start making this side of the necklace. So you're going to grab the unit that you reserved aside with the long thread. So you made 2 units with long thread. You're going to put your needle onto that unit now. And we're going to attach it here. So this is the way we want things to lay out. So we're going to make sure we're coming out of an 8/0 seed bead on our long threaded one, and we're going to start attaching 2 at a time just like we did on this side. So we will attach this one to this very bottom unit up above it, so you don't want to go here or you'll just make your necklace longer. Of course, unless you want a longer V, then you'll just make more units because you have to have the same amount of units. But for what I'm making, for the amount of units I have, I'm going to start right here. I'm coming out of an 8/0 seed bead and on my unit, and then I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a 4mm bicone crystal, and 11/0 seed bead. I'm coming out of this 8/0 seed bead here, and I am going to go into the same side that I'm coming out of into this bead. So I'm coming out of this side, I'm going to go into this side of the 8/0, and then I will pick up another 11/0 seed bead, a 4mm bicone crystal, and an 11/0 seed bead. I have some rondelles in there, sorry, let me get another crystal. Here we go. And I'm going to go through the 8/0 seed bead on this side now and pull it through like so. Now I'm going to secure this, so I'm just going to kind of pick up my piece here and sew through all of my beads again. And this gets a little bit more awkward to work with now that we have so much more bulk of a necklace. So just kind of be patient and just go slow and make sure nothing gets tangled on anything, because it will. Sew through until you've secured it and you're coming out of the 8/0 seed bead in the unit you're attaching. If I can get coordinated, I will do this. Oh, only when you're on film or video, I guess. And then I'm coming out of this 8/0 seed bead here. Now, I need to sew over to this 8/0 seed bead so that I can attach. So I'll sew over to here and I'll attach here, and then I'll sew down and I'll attach here, and then we will have to sew back up into the next one. So let me so I'm going to turn this over. I know I need to sew over to this 8/0 seed bead, so I'm going to go ahead and sew through these 11/0s right here. And this is just a matter now of attaching just like we did before, but you just have to follow your original thread path. Make sure that you don't cross any beads. You have to go through them and turn corners. Don't cross over anything. I'm going to go through this corner bead under my picot and then into these 2 11/0s. Sorry, my needle is so bent and I'm trying to stay in camera, and you know, I'm getting caught on everything. Okay. So here I am now coming out of this 8/0 seed bead. I know I need to attach this unit, work my way around, attach here, and then I'll put my 6mm bicones in the middle, sew myself around over to the other end. So we'll do this one unit together, and then off camera we'll just continue doing the units just like we did on the other side and finish this end like we did this end. So let's go ahead and finish this unit here. So I'm going to pick up an 11/0 seed bead, a bicone crystal, an 11/0 seed bead, and I am going to go through the 8/0 here, and an 11/0, a bicone, and an 11/0, and then I'm going to turn my piece so I can go through this 8/0 a little bit easier. Like I said, you've got a whole bunch of necklace to deal with now, so it gets a little bit more cumbersome to work. I'm going to sew through and secure all of these beads that I just added. And then through the 8/0 again. Then you have to sew all the way back up until you're in the 8/0 you started in. And there goes my thread on the picot again. Remember to watch that. Pull it off of there. Now, I know I have to attach over here, so I'm going to sew through my piece until I get to this 8/0. I will turn it over. Untangle everything. And now I'm going to sew until I get over to this 8/0 seed bead. So make sure, yep, that's the one I want to go to. So I'm going to go through these two 11/0s here, into the picot bead on the bottom bead, as you pull your thread through, just make sure you're not catching on any of your stuff. And then into this 8/0 here. Turn it back over. And now I need to attach here. So I will pick up my 11/0 4mm bicone, 11/0, and go into this one here. And then 11/0, 4mm bicone, and 11/0, and go into this side here. Like so. Now I'm going to secure this . Now the tricky part is that I'm coming out here. If I crossed over to go to the picot to put my 6mm bicones in, I would have a piece of thread sticking out. So I'm going to have to sew down around into this picot. So just make sure that when you're coming out, you can just sew straight over to the picot so that you can climb up that picot. So I'm going to secure a little bit more, just going around this unit. And now I'm in this 8/0 seed bead. I need to sew up into this picot. So I am just going to poke my thread through the back. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to sew through this 11/0, these two 11/0s, and the 11/0 in the picot right here. Up into the side bead of the picot, and then into the very top bead. And as I go through this top bead, I'll just poke my needle through to the front so I can turn my necklace back over. So I'm just going through that bead and pulling through the front of my necklace, turn it over, and then I will connect with my 6mm bicone crystals. So let me get a few of those out. And I will go from picot to picot, just like we did earlier, in the direction that I'm coming out. So I'm coming out this side of the bead, so I'm going to go over to this bead. And then your direction will be set, and you'll just travel around. So now I'm going to go into this one. And then I'll go into this one. And then into this one. And now I'm just going to sew through all of those beads that I just put on and secure them. And now I need to work my way, silly thread, alright, so I need to work my way to where I can get all the way back up to this side or this side to start my next one. So the best way to do this will be to go through this crystal and around my picot and up and around this way. Now, if I was to do it this way, I'd have to sew around my picot, then I'd have to come out and sew all the way around this unit to get over to here. So what you need to do is you just need to make sure you look and see what path will bring you closest to where you want to go. So if I go through this one, this crystal here, I can sew through this picot, these two, all these 11/0s on this side, and come out this 8/0. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through this crystal right here. I'm going to go through this bottom picot bead right here. Then I will sew up the picot, so I have to go up the side. Then I'm going to go through the picot that I'm attached to right here, this bottom picot bead. And I will turn my piece over so I can see where I'm going, because I want to get all the way up to this 8/0 seed bead. So as I was sewing through the front, I came through the picot and this first 11/0, so now I need to get into the one next to it. And this 8/0 here. And then I'll sew up these two here into this one in the corner, into these two 11/0s here, and then into this 8-0. I can turn it back over and lay out my next 2. So now I'm going to start with my 4mm bicones, attach here, attach here, attach here, go into the center, put in my 6mm, find my best path out to this bead, and then do my next set. Then we are going to, after we get all of these 4 attached, then we will do exactly the same as we did on this side, attaching with our bicones here, attach this one by itself, and then into our right angle weave, and then ultimately into these units on the back, and separate to clasp or whatever clasp you have, put your other end of your clasp on, and we will be finished. Now there is no reason for me to show you exactly the same thing over again, so just follow exactly the same steps that we did on this side for this side. If you need to back up the video, just back it up, look at it again, and do each step exactly on this side as we did on this side. And then we will be back with our finished piece. And here it is. I have finished this entire side, went ahead and did my clasping. Now this has turned out to be a little over a 20-inch necklace. It's closer to 21 inches. So it hangs a little lower on the on the chest. It's designed to have the whole V area right down in the middle of your chest. It's very pretty. It hangs really nicely. But if you want it to be shorter, if you want it to hang up a little bit higher towards your neck, then you just reduce the amount of units you do back here. Or if you're a very small person, you may only want to do 4 units instead of 9 and clasp there. You may even, let's see, if I put it on my bead board, if you just go to the point here where we ended and started these extensions, you will have a 16-inch necklace. So if you're a very, very small person, by the time you put on your clasping, you will have a probably 17-inch necklace. However, you have to be a very, very small person because that will be really tight up against your neck. What I went ahead and did was put an extension that goes all the way up here. So you could end it somewhere in here too. So this is all where you're going to adjust your length. You can either clasp here, do a couple more units, maybe even of the right angle weave and just clasp there, or you can do these units. It's up to you. It's totally adjustable as far as your length, the way that it's been designed. So that I leave up to you to figure out. However, if you do it exactly how I've done it, it hangs very nicely. It hangs right, the tip of it is right, you know, close to the cleavage area. So it's just, if you're wearing a low-cut shirt, it's perfect. If you are wearing a very high neck, then it would lay really pretty on the clothing. So, like I said, just figure out how long you want it and go ahead and make it whatever length that you think you should like, and it really turns out pretty. It's just really nice. It sparkles like crazy. It was really nice with the bracelet, and I think that this is a piece that I'm going to keep for myself, and sometime if I ever actually go anywhere, I'll get dressed up and I'll wear it because it's really very, very nice. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I'm going to try to design some earrings for this set, and that will be the next video. Bye-bye.